Hey, beloved Saint Barts. Hey, friends. This is week 4 of our journey through the book of Revelation. This week we're looking at the second half of chapter 1. And what I want to focus in on in this second half of chapter 1 is the way in which it sets the tone for the entire book of Revelation and introduces us to the most important character. The tone for me is set in verse 9. It reads, I, John, your brother, who share with you in Jesus the persecution and the kingdom and the patient endurance, was on the island called Patmos. As we said last week, the time and place of Revelation is a time and place when the greatest military political empire on earth at the time is persecuting these very Christians that John is writing to. They're being persecuted. And John immediately identifies with them and says, I, John, your brother, who share with you in Jesus the persecution and the kingdom and the patient endurance. And the tone of the book of Revelation is one of sharing hope because of who Jesus is to a group of people under persecution. So the tone is hope in the midst of persecution. The most important character that is immediately introduced is Jesus. And if we start in the verses that follow verse 12, John says, I was in the Spirit, or the Holy Spirit, on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a voice like a trumpet saying, write in a book what you see and send it to the 7 churches. These are the 7 churches that this is written for. Then he turned to see whose voice it was that spoke to me. And on turning, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the lampstands, I saw one like the Son of Man. This phrase, the Son of Man, is language that is borrowed from the prophet Daniel in the Hebrew Scriptures. And what John is doing with this whole description of Jesus is this vision, not unlike the visions from the prophet Isaiah or the prophet Ezekiel in the Hebrew Scriptures, about a vision of the Lord. When John refers to the Lord earlier in this chapter as the one who is and who was and who is to come, that's an example of a description of the Lord, not unlike the name of Moses at the burning bush. I am. I never was, I never will be. I am, the one who was and who is to come simultaneously. It goes on with this colorful, powerful description of Jesus. He was clothed with a long robe and with a golden breastplate on his chest. Some translations say sash. His head and his hair were white as wool, white as snow. His eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined as in a furnace. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. Like his voice was like Niagara Falls. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and from his mouth came a sharp, 2-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining with full force. When he speaks, it's like a powerful force or a weapon even, a sword. He shines so brightly, it's like the sun in full force, this glorious depiction of Jesus. And there are 2 statements about who Jesus is and what Jesus is like here that are part of setting the tone for the book of Revelation. The first one I want to point out is in verse 5. Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. John immediately is describing Jesus as the ruler of the kings of the earth. So Caesar is not more powerful than Jesus. Genghis Khan is not more powerful than Jesus. No earthly king or emperor of any kind, even the ruler Domitian of the largest military political force on the planet at that time, is not more powerful than Jesus. Jesus is the ruler of the kings of the earth in verse 5. And then if we continue down to verse 18, Jesus says that he is the living one. I was dead, and see, I am alive forever and ever, and I have the keys of death and Hades. Jesus holds power over death itself. Jesus holds power over Hades or hell itself. And he is the ruler of the kings of the earth. So John sets the tone. I'm with you in this persecution that we are sharing in, as well as the kingdom we share in. And Jesus rules all the kings of the earth, and he has power over death and even over hell. What John is saying is that the tone of this book is one of hope in the midst of persecution, because there is nothing more powerful than Jesus, and there is no one more powerful than Jesus. Jesus is trustworthy, and he is powerful. And that is the beginning of the message of this book of Revelation, what the Lord wanted to reveal to John so that he would write it down and share it with these 7 Christian communities in ancient Turkey. So we'll continue next week with week 5 into chapter 2. The Lord bless you.